Welcome, everyone. How's it going? I got the famous founder of Good Soil Investment and friend of the show, Emmett, on the show. Emmett, how's it going?
Good, good. How's it going, Yashu? I guess people always ask me like, what do you do? And I always tell them like, yeah, I invested in Tesla early and did well. And, people know me within the Tesla Twitterverse, but, I guess
Mhm.
without that, no one really knows who I am. So famous is a loose term within the Tesla Twitterverse, maybe a little bit. Yeah. But it's fun to participate in shows like this because, Tesla is fast becoming, the biggest company in the world or the
Mm.
best stock story of all time, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Especially considering, I think since the last time we spoke, so much has happened.
Yeah,
Like the
yeah,
whole world has been turned upside down, mostly for the worse, considering
yeah.
everything that's happening with Russia, Ukraine, which we can talk about a little bit later. By the way, I see all the chats coming in. Let me know where you guys are tuning in from in the chat. But Emmett, since the last time we talked, now pull up the stock. Oh, pardon me. I'll pull up the stock price here if I can. On we will
Cool.
854. Finally, a green day. I'm not sure if this was planned by the market makers, knowing that Emmett was coming on the show, but but it's definitely
The
welcome.
powers that be, yeah, the macro market makers, whoever that is.
Yeah, that one.
Putin
Uh,
and NATO. Yeah, they're the macro market makers.
right on. But just I'd love to get your overall thoughts. It's been a long time since we spoke. How's it been on your end, and how are you kind of seeing the world? Is kind of probably the broader question here.
Yeah. I mean, the macro markets have been very volatile for it feels like 3 months now since, early December, right? That's 3 months now. Yeah. So um it's longer than usual. It feels like, when the macro markets are volatile or, start getting a little wonky and very uncertain because of it initially started with the interest rate signaling by the Fed, the change of stance of inflation being transitory to something they have to act on and change rates. And so that really created some ripples in the macro market. And that lasted for a while. Now, more recently, in the last month, it's this Russia-Ukraine tensions, which has continued the market volatility, and it's going on 3 months of a lot of de-risking of and reallocating of to a new world. And last time we saw such volatility, I feel like, or a major macro market event was the COVID crash in
Hmm.
2020, early 2020, and that crash lasted like 1 or 2 months, and that was like a major crash. And then the stock market kind of rebounded and it got stable again. But this feels like it's going on 3 months. I mean, a lot of the growth in tech stocks have gone down like 80% or
Oh
more,
yeah,
and
yeah.
we're as a Tesla fanatic and investor, mostly, it's very good. It's a silver lining. Tesla's only going down what, like 30% from its highs or less, even, maybe. Yeah, so it's not
Yes.
terribly. The valuation hasn't come down as terribly much as a lot of the growth tech stocks.
Yeah, it's I kind of talked about this yesterday a little bit. It's kind of like the pseudo stress test on Tesla. Like if you wanted to, and of course this is not the circumstances. By the way, I think we're just hitting high of day here,
Nice,
858. But
right?
obviously, all things considered, we don't want to be in this position where we're having to be stress tested by geopolitical or war. Really, quite frankly. But if you want to talk about stress tests, it's hard to find probably. Other than maybe COVID factory shutdowns, something to the degree of what we're seeing now. And it doesn't seem like it's going to stop either. I think Russia and Ukraine said that they're going to sit down and talk about ceasefire a little bit, but I don't know. Maybe it's the pessimist in me that kind of feels like those are just kind of lip service from Putin for now. But
Yeah.
it kind of seems like the market's on edge. Would you say it's calmed down in the last week or two here, or it's going to calm down as FOMC comes up? Or
Yeah, I think there's some kind of like, I think, the big money, the institutional money, whether it's the pension funds or endowments, those are the people that really move the macro markets the most. I feel like, retail investors to a degree, but mostly it's like institutional money. And I feel like maybe there's some certainty in coming back, or less uncertainty now that we've seen the Russia Ukraine escalate to a point, but it hasn't gone beyond. It's terrible what's going on there, but it hasn't
yeah.
gone to like a nuclear tactical attack yet, or it hasn't been talked about much more yet, something like that, because that would be even worse for volatility and uncertainty, like what's going to happen then. But as long as it's just like a full out war, which is terrible in itself, as long as it's just a ground war, it's so terrible humanitarian wise what's going on there. But for the macro markets, that's what we're kind of people tuning in to talk about, how to protect their portfolios and wealth, or how to diversify our risk. It just feels like commodities are going up. There's all kinds of sanctions. The world's been, I feel like that's
Yeah.
sort of getting priced in right now, or it's been priced in. And now,
Hmm.
the big money's kind of maybe putting some money back to work. But at the same time, liquidity providers, I talked about this yesterday with Matt a bit on our live stream that we do on Tuesdays, but it seems like the modern day liquidity provider in the markets, the things that are that's what the market makers used to be. In the old
Hmm.
days, there used to be registered market makers registered with, FINRA or the SEC, and they were required to put on like two-sided quotes of every stock and every option and such, and ETFs, and even, and at all times, and so maybe when there was like crazy macro news, they'd kind of widen that spread, the bid offer spread, to be a bit, to be
Hmm.
wider, but they're still required to have that two-sided quote showing. And
Hmm.
that was liquidity. So if there's people buying or selling, there's always those quotes there to kind of provide some liquidity. Well, in the last 10 or 20 years, most, my understanding is that, a large degree of those registered market makers have been put out of business by the advent of high frequency trading firms.
Hmm.
Citadel, Two Sigma, and others. They're Susquehanna.
What's going on? Yeah.
They're not registered as market makers, but they compete with the market makers in unfair ways because they don't have to abide by the rules that the market makers do, and so they've competed a lot of the market makers out of business. And so now they have been the liquidity providers of, in stable markets. They make a penny here or a penny there by providing tight bid offer quotes, and they can quickly turn around with their, flash trading, flash boys trading. There's that book by Michael Lewis, Flash Boys, that talks a lot about this stuff. And so in times of uncertainty like now, those liquidity providers are not required to put two-sided quotes on anymore. And
Hmm.
so what do? If you're a risk manager of a multi-billion-dollar fund or high frequency trading firm that's, in the business of making pennies on every trade, all of
Yeah.
a sudden uncertainty, what do? If you're the risk manager, you press the button, take the quotes off, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
And so now there's no liquidity. So when
Hmm.
people are selling, there's a lot less liquidity to sell into, and it drives the market down much faster. Or when people are
Yep.
buying, like today, there's a
Hmm.
lot less liquidity to slow down the upward rise of the prices. So stocks go up very fast, And so I don't think the liquidity providers have come back to the market to kind of slow down the ups and downs yet. But maybe they
Hmm.
will. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just we're looking at bid asks, looking at the price action, right? The amount of volatility that we're seeing on low volume. Yeah, it's been kind of crazy. And on top of that, I mean, it just
Yeah.
feels like we haven't done anything. Yes, we've gone up. We've like even today's a 4% up day, sitting here at 858. And but it still seems like in the last 2 weeks, like we've been up, we've been down, but at the end of the day, it's kind of just it seems like we've been flat kind of trading here. So
Yeah.
I guess if you're long or if you're short out of the money stuff, perhaps longer term stuff, perhaps you've made money here. But this type of market, these types of markets really favor traders, I guess, sophisticated ones that can play both sides and just kind of be a yo-yo at the moment. But with FOMC next week, for example, like, and of course CPI inflation is coming out tomorrow. Um, all indications are kind of pointing towards it being obviously a hot inflation print. I think 7.8 or 8% is kind of the expected street year
Mhm.
over year estimate. Do you think that's what, like, kind of the last thing that the market is kind of waiting for, at least just macroeconomically speaking? Of course, not nuclear or anything. I was
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah.
By the way, I was just talking to a friend about that, about the nuclear point that you made, and we were both like, the minute it goes into nuclear talk, like, forget about the market, forget about anything. Like, nothing
Yeah.
matters at that point.
Yeah.
Humanity's at risk,
Yeah.
and it's so true. And I think that's partly what it is. But yeah, back to CPI and FOMC.
Yeah.
Love to get your thoughts there.
Yeah, just one point on the nuclear thing. Like, it might have always been like, a 0.1% or 0.5% per year, some kind of nuclear accident, bomb goes off or whatever, let's say. But
Hmm.
now this year, I feel like it's risen dramatically because of this conflict. Maybe it's, 5%, or maybe it's 10 or 20%. I don't know, but it's risen. It's not
Yeah.
negligible anymore. So I don't know. It's scary. It's probably not going to happen. but that's not good enough to be like going to bed sleeping well at night. And if it
Hmm.
does happen, it might not be an end of world nuke. It might just be like a tactical nuke in some city in Ukraine that Russia tries to, frame onto Ukrainian, separatists or whatever. Who knows? But and the world doesn't necessarily respond with a nuclear strike back, obviously, but it would still be such a terrible event for the market and humanity. The market could gap down 20 or 30% overnight on something like that. That's what I'm really scared of. But anyway,
Yeah.
for the FOMC and CPI, I hope in borrowing that, the CPI and FOMC, I don't I'm not a macroeconomist specialist. I just am forced in my business to try to pay attention and try to understand it as best I can. I think inflation numbers have, been anticipated, like high inflation's anticipated already. And I think I think almost if I had to guess, I mean, it's really uncertain, but if I had to guess one way or the other, I think almost no matter what the number is tomorrow, the market's going to go up, hopefully, and be like,
Hmm.
okay, there's another indicator of what we think is going to be happening. Let's put our money to work.
Hmm.
So I think, whether it's bad or good, I think the market would more likely go up after tomorrow's
Hmm.
numbers, since it's already sort of priced in, like maximum inflation fears are sort of priced into
Hmm.
some degree. And you know whether whether that proves to be true, or whether it's the numbers are contrary to that, both that news is sort of good in terms of putting money back to work that's on the sidelines in cash right now. That's my
Hmm.
initial thought, just based on how much money's been taken off to the sidelines in the last several months. I mean, what do you think? What do you think, Yash?
Yeah, I basically said the same thing a little. I mean, maybe not like not super confident on a Green Day, but it really does feel like a lot of the fear has been priced in. Yes, you could argue that originally, what, like a month ago before this whole invasion, we kind of, the markets were pricing in what, 50 basis point hike, and then
Yeah,
quarter. Now it kind of seems like 25 basis points is what they're going to go with at the moment. Who knows, that might change, but yeah, I think you're right. Like, by the way, 8% is nuts.
yeah,
Inflation year over year for sure. But the
yeah.
key here is it continual past, let's say, March,
Hmm.
April, May, because January, February were lower inflation months last year. So of course they're going to be higher when adjusted for year over year this year. But I think it's April, May onwards that we started to see elevated inflation numbers. So we very well might see the inflation number come back down towards April. Now, like here up in Canada, we already had a 25 basis point hike. The Bank of Canada already did that. The world's not falling apart, and it seems fine. We have a little bit less inflation compared to the states, but still elevated at like 30 or 40-year records.
Yeah,
But but you're right. There's a lot of money. There has to be a lot of money on the sides. We know what M2 levels are in the economy. It's not like the money's disappeared.
yeah,
Um, and in these kind of environments that we're sitting in, it's just hard to say anything with confidence because as you said, tomorrow we could wake up to some other news story out of the whole Russia Ukraine crisis. So
yeah,
it's just it's a hard market. It's a market, I guess, where you have to just continually focus on the longer term, increasingly so, not even 6 months anymore, more like
yeah,
a year or two out at the bare minimum,
yeah,
because what's happening. But yeah, FOMC next week I think might also be telling. Of course, everyone's pricing in a rate hike, but it's going to be, there's an argument to be made how dovish Fed members might be next week,
yeah.
considering the lack of demand from the war.
Yeah, we've heard a lot from I feel like we've heard a lot of fear mongering headlines from the more hawkish Fed members. I think Bullard is one, and there's another one. But you have to remind ourselves, and today it's always been the case, but especially more so today than ever, fear mongering headlines is what gets the most clicks, and that's also in financial media, right? So
Mm.
I think Bloomberg reporters even get some kind of like incentive bonus if they publish a headline story that moves some stock or market more than like 5% or something like that. I don't know. So
Really?
they're
Oh.
incentivized. I heard that, something like that. I don't know if anyone in the comments has heard that or understands the business model, but
Hmm.
I've heard that, kind of some incentive bonus for getting a scoop, quote unquote, that
A scoop.
moves the
Okay.
market. Yeah. And so there's a lot of incentive to produce these fear mongering headlines on stocks or on the markets these days. And, so you have to kind of discount that fear mongering news we've been hearing about to some degree because of that. So, yeah, I mean, I think we live in a different world in terms of media and fear and FUD. Especially you saw it in Tesla, for example. You see it a
Yeah.
lot in politics, but if we know it firsthand from Tesla. And the great thing about investing in stocks and something like Tesla is you can be right and get and have wealth redistributed to you from all the people that were wrong. It's a really incredible capitalistic instrument in that
Mm.
regards.
What's funny is amidst everything that we're talking about, of course, it's hard to say with any certainty what's going to happen, of course, but amidst everything that's going on, it seems like Tesla is continuing to execute on the fundamentals, increasingly so. We
Yeah.
got news with obviously Berlin red tape finally being passed, and grand opening first deliveries happening on the 23rd of March, I think.
Yeah.
Um, Austin coming online. 4680s by the end of the year is kind of the scoop from Troy Teslake on
Yeah.
Twitter. It just seems like amidst all of the dust, all of the nastiness in the world at the moment, somehow Tesla is just pushing through and continuing to deliver on the fundamentals, hopefully.
Yeah, and as you say that, the market likes it. They're bidding up Tesla to new all-time, not all-time, new intraday highs for the day.
New all-time highs. Oh, I missed something.
Yeah. Although, like 6 months ago, we'd be so thrilled if it was at 860 now. Imagine 6 months ago. You just have to put things in perspective.
Yeah.
5 or 6 months ago, you would be so thrilled about Tesla being at 860 now versus I think 5 or 6 months ago it was like in the 700s.
I'll pull it up. Yeah.
And you'd be so thrilled that it's at 860 now, despite all the crazy volatility where all the growth tech stocks have been cut in half or more. So I think Tesla's turned a new corner in terms of its investment perception of investing in it. It's no longer a speculative growth stock so much. It's
Yeah.
more of a cash cow growing stock, like a stock that's going to
It
produce
is.
tons of cash flow.
Yeah.
And the fundamentals are really coming into fruition at the right time here during a massive correction in the growth in tech stocks. If this had been a year ago, like if
Yeah.
this type of correction had happened right after the S&P inclusion, Tesla stock could have gone from like 900 to like 300 real quick, but I think the fact that we had the incredible, last couple quarters of gross margins and
Yeah.
things are looking really good. It's really been a great backstop for the stock. Yeah.
For sure. Like if you look at something like Shopify, it was, I think yesterday I checked, it's up today 10%, but it's up for like $500.
Oh my gosh.
Shopify was almost $2,000 not that long ago. Like,
Wow.
and
That's crazy.
it's nuts. Like these growth stocks have taken such a big hit, and of course, it's awesome to see Tesla. I mean, still, what we're $400 away from all-time highs, but at the end of the day, still, the correction that we've had is still holding. We're sitting at 860 still because of the earnings power that people see in a stock like
Yeah.
Tesla, and not only the earnings power, but the growth. Like hard to find a mega cap that will grow EPS as much as Tesla will, especially with these two new factories, which are still to be seen.
Yeah.
Are you planning on going to Austin? I had some questions about people asking if you're going to be there, if you have tickets.
Yeah, I would like to go. I don't think invites have been sent out yet to anyone.
Okay.
So unless someone else in the comments or someone that is, I haven't seen on Twitter anyone getting an invite officially yet.
Okay.
So hopefully when they send invites out, I'll get one. I would like to go for sure. Yeah. And it would be neat to, I've never been to Austin, and I'd love to see the Gigafactory and go to Austin and check it out. And I heard great things about it. And what about you, Yashu? Are you thinking you're going to go, or?
It's tough for me. First of all, I don't think I'm cool enough to get an invite, but even if I did, like, it might be a little bit tough for me, because with the cross-border travel testing having to do, I have to look in the protocols of leaving the country at the moment. I'd love to. Maybe a couple of weeks ago, I was more confident that I'd go. I'm a little bit less confident now, but you never know. If something happens, maybe I'll just take a last minute flight over. I think now we can actually take rapid antigen testing. We don't have to do PCR testing.
Oh, good.
Which takes like 2 days or a day to get your result or something. And if you, and as a Canadian, if you are in the States and you test positive, you have to stay there for 10 extra days, which is
wow.
nuts. It's just,
wow.
it's not fun. Yeah, but I'd love to. I'm guessing Dave will probably make it somehow.
Yeah, he lives there now, so I'm sure he'll go. Yeah. I
Yeah,
think there's something like they're gonna prioritize the local Tesla investors or owners first.
makes sense.
So
Yeah, makes
yeah, it
sense.
makes sense. And I saw something that there's like a capacity for up to 15,000 people potentially in the permit they requested or something. I think Sawyer Merritt tweeted something about the details, or Teslarati or something.
That's quite
So it
big.
could be quite a lot of people, and yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I hope to be able to go. I think it'll be really cool, and
Yeah.
I just we'll see what happens. I think they still have to get the official approval from the Travis County or something before they can send out the invites. Maybe.
Yeah, and I think they still don't have the certificate of approval to start delivering Model Ys yet.
Hmm.
Do we have an do you know if there's an update on that? If when they're expecting that by?
No, I don't know. I've heard of people getting like delivery emails like, "Hey, your car is almost ready for delivery," and they have a VIN that shows it's in Austin, like performance Model Ys and stuff, and maybe
Hmm.
April delivery sometimes the projected time. So I thought I read that somewhere, but I'm sure it'll happen, and just a matter of time. Giga Berlin looks like it's finally getting their first deliveries in March. Later this
Yeah.
month. That's been a big overhang for months and months.
Oh,
So it's
mm,
great that they're finally going to make their deliveries. So yeah, the next couple quarters should be exciting with those two factories ramping up deliveries and production. That'll be
oh yeah,
that'll be
that'll
a
be
nice
big.
tailwind for the stock itself, probably over the next several quarters.
Oh, for sure. And what excites me the most, of course, is in the long run, those factories are going to be the ones with with a much higher gross margin than the
Yeah,
current factories, which is, I guess, saying a lot considering Shanghai, of course, and
yeah.
how
I'm
well
not sure
Shanghai.
they'll be. I mean, I would guess they're not as high as Shanghai, though. Still, I think Shanghai. I think the biggest news here is that um, there's the new factory in Tesla that's going to be built. Right, there's a new 1 million car capacity factory in
Shanghai.
Tesla in I think Shanghai again or something. So that's like the real big news that no one's really sort of taking. No one's really paying a whole lot of. It's not on the radar. Berlin's capacity is 500,000, and
For
Texas
now.
is probably initially 500,000, but they'll probably expand it later. But it'll take years to expand it to a million or 2 million or whatever. But you build something in China, that goes up like practically overnight. Like you see them like videos of them building bridges, or you see how the first factory went. This factory is
Oh,
probably going to be built even faster. So within a year, that factory could be producing, another 500,000, close to a million cars a year,
mm,
and those gross margin on those cars, that's supposed to be an export hub. There's some language around that being an export hub. And I know that the cars produced in China that are exported are like the most profitable cars, gross margin wise, for Tesla.
mm,
So, that's the real that's really good news. That's bigger than Berlin. That's bigger than Berlin and Austin combined in some ways in terms of the fundamentals of the
mm,
business, I think. But in terms
mm.
of like perception and branding and news headlines, obviously having a big factory in Germany and one in Austin is a bigger deal. But in
Mm.
terms of the numbers, I think the one in the next factory in China is a huge deal.
But don't you think with the 4680s out of Austin and out of Berlin, those are going to be those might effectively almost double gross margin? At least that's what we've been told from Battery Day.
Yeah, that's a big unknown. I mean, 4680s,
That's
what
fair.
they produced like a million cells in the first up, finally at the end of January. Like, we don't know where they are on the S ramp. Like, are they close to the steep part, or are they still a couple years away from the steep part of the S ramp?
Mm.
You can't, China, they could do something very similar or as good in China. CATL is like this
Kettle, yeah,
behemoth of a battery factor, battery producer now. Like,
yeah.
we had a guy on our channel that had like all these detailed models and projections of what CATL and the other producers in China are doing. He's been following like regulator websites of battery regulators in
Hmm.
China, and he has a good case for why batteries are no longer an issue whatsoever.
Hmm.
Battery constraints, like that used to be the problem with Tesla. How many batteries can they make? That's how many cars they can make, but that's not an issue. His claim is that's no
Hmm.
longer an issue.
Hmm.
With Chinese CATL, especially, but a couple other Chinese producers. And then the 4680 is just like icing on the cake. Like, so
Hmm.
really the constraint is like chips for a while, it seems like. And so as long
Hmm.
as they can get a ton more chips up, I think they'll deliver millions of cars in the next, a year, and starting in next year even. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like, and of course you're right. I mean, it's still technically an unknown with the 4680s and the unit economics on those.
Hmm.
I'm just bullish because during Battery Day we were told how little space Tesla needs, or in the same allotted space, for example, like in Fremont, they can effectively double production. So
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of a wild card. And we know from Troy, apparently Berlin is set to switch to 4680s by Q4 of this
Hmm.
year. And then in terms of the ramp, in that thread, I'm not sure if you've seen it, but in that thread, they said the 1 millionth cell was made in the last I think 2 or 3 months prior to the end of January. So let's say November, December, January.
Hmm.
That's how long it took for 1 million cells to be made. And then they plan on having the second millionth done by the end of March. So let's say 2 months. So that does look like they are expanding that. And of course, Cato Road is just a pilot factory for that. But it does seem like it took them a while to get to the point where now they are slowly exponentially growing, still on that lower part of that curve for now.
Hmm.
But Elon has said like Cato Road will supply enough batteries for 4680s to begin at least deliveries out of Austin. But yeah, I'm not expecting that, probably towards the end of the year to really hit like meaningful production at least.
Yeah, I think the 4680 could be a really nice upside surprise to gross margins, but I'm just not modeling that surprise in yet into any quarterly,
Hmm.
we're not doing that yet. I mean, well, I'm looking forward to see what that, upside is, but the timing of that, and actually how much it is compared to how low they've already gotten battery costs down from CATL and LG, we'll see.
Mm. Well, that's good. I mean, I love to hear that you're not even pricing in 4680s because again, like and FSD, right? And we can
Yeah.
open up the
Yeah.
conversation with FSD and Elon
Yeah.
saying end of this year, end of this year. And of course, we've heard that before, but it really does seem like we're in a different position this year, considering betas are already out, safety scores are out, visualizations are on, expanding to Canada. Has your not timeline, but has your confidence in FSD beta in the short term increased as of late, or are you still status quo?
Yeah, no, I think my confidence has increased. I'm certainly looking forward to see how this, version 11 pans out with the full stack. So that's hopefully going to be released in the next month or so, and we'll get lots of videos from YouTubers, on that and feedback and such. I am increasingly worried about the FUD, the headlines. We saw that
Mm,
CNBC piece not long ago, and you're going to see more of that, I think. And regulators will maybe try to push against it, but as long as that doesn't create some kind of like federal, like countrywide, legislation to, you know, make Tesla, or NHTSA doesn't force Tesla to recall all of its full self-driving software, for example, then hopefully there will be like one city first, like whether it's somewhere in Arizona or Miami or something, that says, okay, we'll we'll let self-driving cars for Tesla, you know, operate in our city without a driver in it, without an engineer watching it or anything, and then that proof case will show that, hey, this works. There's nothing to be afraid of. It's not killing anyone. It's not killing people. It's not causing accidents. And then maybe some other cities will follow suit, and then it'll be too late for anyone to stop it after a first few cities or a couple
mm,
states, allow it, and there's some kind of, economic activity going. And as long as there's no incredibly sad, crashes that happen and caught on tape, like running over a baby in a stroller or whatever, like
you said that, yeah,
if something like that happens, that could be crippling as well for a while for the development or the allowance of full self-driving. But
yeah.
as long as something like that hasn't happened early on, I think it'll be too late by that point. What do you think about it? What do you
No,
think about
I
full self-driving?
those are generally my thoughts too. I'm not super bullish on government approving this quite or fast tracking this at all. I think you're right. There's probably going to be some states like Florida, I think might be one of them that, want to adopt this. We've already seen them go for Bitcoin and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, yeah.
um yes, I am this year might be a stretch, and of course I haven't driven FSD beta. So, maybe I'm not privy to a lot of this stuff, but the videos that are coming out are like, especially on this new build, are looking good. We're seeing improvement, and there's stuff like, for example, that Cruise can do, like just avoid certain turns or avoid areas and go around that Tesla
Yeah.
hasn't even implemented at the moment. Like they're just
Yeah.
they're everywhere all the time, and they don't
Yeah.
care about a left turn here. They won't reroute or reroute depending on your accent, and stuff like that, where I think if they just, all they did was they just maneuvered the code base to say, okay, these turns are hard, therefore we're going to avoid them, and
Yep.
these types of routes have way less disengagements, so we're going to stick with these and put a higher confidence level on those. There's probably stuff they can do to maneuver to make it way more applicable, way more successful. But here's also the problem in my boat, that just keeping Tesla honest is, I would love to see like miles per disengagement or some sort of metric from Tesla with FSD beta. And of course, they don't owe us anything, but I'd love to see how the program is doing from an objective point of view.
Yeah.
And of course, it's not to compare it with something like Cruise, for example, or Waymo, because they're different. It's like apples to oranges almost, right?
Yeah.
But just to track progress of how FSD beta is doing. And
Yeah.
maybe they released that soon enough, but I'd love to see objective data rather than parsing through YouTube and then having to figure out, okay, well, for example, Chuck's unprotected left turns. Love looking
Yeah.
at those, seeing
Yeah.
that. But I'd love to see objective data
Yeah,
behind
I
it.
think eventually they'll release some more objective data. They probably have it internally. They're just being
Yeah.
careful about it when they present it, because they know it will be picked apart like crazy, and they
Yeah.
just want to get to that confidence interval where it's like it's very clearly safer than humans. So maybe they're close to that, or I'm sure they will be at some point soon. But I think
Yeah.
they will release all the data, on the safety, just like they do on the autopilot highway driven miles. Like they
Yeah.
release that data.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, we'll see how that goes. That's a whole new business model within Tesla that will then get priced into the stock, so that's exciting when that comes to fruition for sure.
Absolutely. Moving on to EV adoption. Love to get your thoughts of, obviously you're in the Bay Area. Gas
Yep.
prices have been nuts. I've seen some screenshots of like
Yeah.
$7 a gallon in the Bay Area. Up here in
Yeah.
Canada, it's about $2.15 or 16 cents Canadian per liter. So gas prices are nuts. Are you anecdotally, of course, plural of anecdote is not data, but are you anecdotally seeing more EV talks in and around your network, friend group, family? How do you think this bodes for EV adoption?
Yeah. I mean, I think this is probably the straw that breaks the camel's back for a lot of people who are probably more likely gonna get. My mom, for example, just placed an order for a pre-owned Tesla. She's paying a premium for it.
Hmm.
She wants to get it in the next week or two, and it's like a Model 3 that's like close to 60,000. It's just long range. There's nothing too special about it, but you have to pay a premium, and it's from Tesla. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, her current car is a Subaru, and somehow she accidentally put diesel at a gas station into her car. But I don't know how that. I think there's like laws that's prevented, but somehow she accidentally did, and
Oh no.
her car within a day or two stopped working, and
Oh
had to
no.
get it towed, and then it's like many thousands of dollars. They've had her car for like a month, and she
Oh,
finally just threw in the
yikes.
towns like, I'll get an EV. I want a Tesla finally, even though she's not technologically savvy whatsoever. Like I have to show her
Uh-huh.
how to do everything on her iPhone, even, like,
Uh-huh.
so
Uh-huh.
I'm very nervous about that. And but she finally said, okay. So I think people are going to be you just, whether it's gas prices or the next major, oil change issue they have with their cars, everything like this, people that are already thinking about the EV, getting an EV,
Mhm.
these types of things are all kind of like contribute to their decision to pull the trigger finally. And so I think the gas prices, yeah, it's like
Yeah.
$5 a gallon plus here everywhere. I haven't seen
Yeah.
$7 yet, but I hear that's around here somewhere. I haven't seen that, but
Oh,
I don't
LA,
know.
sorry. LA.
LA, yeah, and I'm sure it's coming here too at certain places. But yeah, I mean, it's expensive to fill up a car. It's I
Yeah.
was talking to someone yesterday, and it cost him like $80 or $60 to fill up his car. It used to be $30. It's like double the price in, in a matter
Mhm.
of a few months. It's like it's a big deal. Like people's monthly expenses or weekly expenses are going up that
Yeah.
much, and you factor that into the cost of EV ownership. The problem is there's not a lot of availability of EVs. Like
Yeah.
Tesla's delivering 300,000 car. Like how many of that is in the US? Like 150,000 is in the US or something. I don't know, but they're delivering hundreds of thousands of cars per quarter in the US. All the other
Mhm.
EVs sold combined is like 1/10 of that or something. It's crazy. So like, even though there's
Yeah.
like dozens of other models, they're all like basically compliance cars or prototypes being sold, and there's
Yeah.
maybe like combined like one quarter of what Tesla is selling, and Tesla's
Mhm.
growing fast. So it's really Tesla's the game in town if you want to buy an EV, and it's a superior product anyway. And the
Mhm.
wait list is like 6 months plus, and it's just going to keep getting longer, I think. But
Mhm.
maybe they will increase their prices to kind of lower the wait list. I don't know. I mean, do you think they're going to
Yeah.
increase their prices further? What do you think about that?
Oh, that's a whole another story. I think with tracking with commodity price increases, and Adam Jonas out of Morgan Stanley had a note today saying, with the recent nickel surge, that's probably $1,000 or $2,000 added to the cost of an EV already,
Ugh,
depending on how long this lasts, of course. But you know what I think is really cool, and you kind of hit the nail on the head. I think, Emmett, is now what we're gonna see is a consumer grassroots level pitchforks coming out for legacies to go to EV.
yeah,
Whereas before it was, of course, governments and, if you want to call it, hippies or people that cared about the environment being like, hey, give me EVs. Now, I think what we're going to start seeing is the average family who loves Ford vehicles. I know a couple families like that only buy Ford, for example. They're going to go to their dealership or their sales rep now and be like, look, like, I need more EV options. I don't want to buy a Tesla, let's say, if
yeah,
they hate Tesla. And what we're start and maybe it won't be this month, maybe it'll be by the end of this year, we're going to start to see a consumer mindset shift into going to these legacy companies and pushing EVs on them. And so you talk about forcing the hand. Of course, government is the ultimate hand forcer for any corporation, of course.
yeah,
But at the end of the day, I think having consumers will come with pitchforks to legacy. Uh,
yeah,
that's gonna be the biggest thing, in my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah. Yeah, I think so too. I think, my mom is buying this pre-owned Tesla for like $59,000, like pre-owned
Wow.
Model 3, 2020, I think,
Wow.
model year. And it's like just a long range. It's got a couple of the
Oh,
bells
long.
and
Okay.
whistles or whatever. But I bet I wouldn't be surprised if, in 6 months, if gas prices are this high, she can turn around and sell that for like $65,000, or
Yeah.
even if full self-driving hasn't made progress. I'm saying, like, I
Hmm.
wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if maybe in a year she could sell for 75,000 even, like there's just going to be a real flipping of demand onto EVs with these gas prices, especially. I mean, it's already happening, especially if they pass this like $7,500 credit that we've been hearing about for if the US Congress finally passes that, which may or may not happen, I don't know, but it's been talked about for like 9 months or a long time, maybe a year now, I don't know, but it's
Yeah.
something that could be on the horizon too. So there's just going to be more and more demand for these EVs, and production capacity is not going to be able to keep up with it. And that's why Elon said, like, the product roadmap update on the last quarterly earnings call was that
Mm.
there's no product roadmap update. Basically, they're just going to ramp up the threes and Ys as much as they possibly can because demand is through the roof. And there's no reason they should even introduce the Cybertruck now. It would just take away from marginal capacity of Model 3s and Ys they could produce and deliver. So, the demand is accelerating. It's not increasing. It's accelerating, I think, is the
Mm.
thing.
The best product roadmap is no product roadmap.
Yeah, like the best service is no service. The best product roadmap
Yeah.
is your product is so good you don't need a roadmap.
You don't need a roadmap. You don't need a business plan.
Yeah, that's where
Uh,
Tesla might be at. Yeah.
Yeah, I've always like thought like the biggest risk to Tesla is the world just stops playing the EV game. They just decide, you know what, EVs aren't for us. We're going to continue, kind of like what happened with with GM, of course, when they killed the first EV.
Yeah.
Like that's always been the biggest risk, and I think, of course, amidst everything that's going on and gas and oil prices soaring here, it's just become there's going to be a forcing mechanism here. I think so. It's and yeah, production is going to lag demand, and it already has, of course, for Tesla. But at
Yeah.
least now, legacy has no way, kind of nowhere to hide. Like once consumers are saying, "Hey, look, we're not going to we're not going to keep buying your gas guzzling vehicles in the long run.
Yeah.
It's just going to be, they're going to have to switch. So, um,
Yeah. What's going on with Tesla here? We're stuck at 858. We
yeah,
can't
we've
get
been
past
chopping around.
860.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Hive day is 860.56.
Oh,
I
wow.
noticed today there's a lot of call buying actually going on in Tesla. Let me see if I can share my
Yeah,
screen
sure. Let's
here.
do the call buying. I always love your kind of your takes on, open interest or where the call buying or put buying is going on these things.
Yeah, I'm really digging. Let's see here. I'll pull this up. There we go. I'm really digging Traditex. They've got kind of everything laid out together. What they have that I like is the algo flow score, where they kind of just score the options for the day.
Mhm, mhm.
This is the longer term one. Longer term, we're still bearish, but if we look at just today, the algo scores, like consistent call buying has happened, and they have a total net premium chart here that shows like that green line is calls, the red line is puts. Pretty subdued put buying today, but a lot of call buying going on
Okay.
in Tesla,
Okay.
which is like the exact opposite of yesterday.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, but again, I think a lot of this might have to do with front running CPI for tomorrow. I think
Hmm.
this generally is probably not unique to Tesla. Like if I put in, let's say the Nasdaq, let's just put in QQQ and see how that's going. Some bearish divergence there, and yeah, some call buying going on, and put buying. So just a lot of premium buying. It seems like finally in the market. So,
Hmm.
um, yeah, I guess we'll see. The problem with this market, of course, is the headline risk that we have at any juncture, right? So
Wow. Yeah. So I mean, I think so would you say there's more call buying than usual today than it sounds like, or
on Tesla, yes. On the Nasdaq, seems pretty average, but yeah, on the Tesla, if you look at they've got daily and weekly premium heat maps. So
Mhm.
if you just wanted to see today, net, the most amount of money has been coming into January 2023 leaps, pretty much at the money, or a little bit in the money, $15.5 million worth. Um,
Wow.
so the rest of it is kind of subdued. There's some 850s buying 5.7 million for the week here. But yeah, I mean, subdued still. This market is funny. There's not a lot of options. Like if you talk about pre January, like December, there's a lot of of course, November, there's a lot of options, premium calls, puts, a lot of money being thrown around. And it
Yeah.
just seems like the money has just like disappeared for the time being. So
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Have you ever used interactive brokers, their probability lab? I know you don't you have interactive brokers or something or
I do. Yeah, I do. I have used it, but I haven't used it recently.
okay. Yeah, there's the probability lab. I was just looking right now and if you look at the
Do you want to share your screen, or
yeah, let
you
me
don't
see if
have
I can
to?
share it. I'm
Yeah.
I'm not on my computer that I can that I use interactive brokers on, but I sent myself a screenshot here.
Okay.
Let me pull it up here 1 second, and then I can share my screen maybe.
Okay. Sure. No worries.
Uh,
858.76
all
on
right.
Tesla.
So let me see if I can share screen. Um, okay, let's try this. Okay, window. Okay, I'll share this window. Here we go. Can you
Uh,
see it?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Yeah,
Got it.
so this is a screenshot of the probability lab with Tesla and the options. And for June, if you see the top left corner there, June 2023, um, you can see that's the expiration I picked. So it's a little more than a year out. I just wanted to see what like the options are pricing for where the stock will be at that time,
Hmm.
based on the current pricing of the options. It looks like if you go to the bottom red area, it's very hard to see. I know the format is, but in the red format, around 50%, the 50% mark, like the over under for 50% is around $700 or 700. And,
Hmm.
so there's a 50% chance based on the options pricing that it thinks Tesla stock is going to be at $700 or below
Hmm.
in June 2023, which seems crazy, right? I mean, I haven't seen this kind of
Hmm.
skew in a while where it's like
Hmm.
well below the current price, even. It just, I don't know
Interesting.
what that is. Is that the implied volatility or what? I'm not sure. I mean,
What expiration? This is June
June
2023. Okay.
2023. Yeah. So a
Interesting.
little more than a year. And yeah, I don't doesn't make sense to me. I mean, you go up to 1,000, if you go to the 1,000 strike price, it's saying that's like then it's saying like it's a 70% chance or like 68% chance around that it's going to be below $1,000 a share. And so,
Hmm.
okay, maybe I understand that a little bit, but to be at $700 or below, and then it says if you go to like $1,500, it's saying like
Hmm.
only a 15% chance it'll be above $1,500, in
Hmm.
June 2023, and $2,000. It
Uh-huh.
says only a 5% chance. So the options are priced for June 2023 are producing only a 5% chance that the stock is going to be up $2,000 a share
Hmm.
in that
2000
time.
meaning about 2 trillion. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So that's pretty crazy. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I just took that screenshot.
Huh.
I'll stop sharing. How do I stop my?
Here, I got it. There we go.
Okay,
By
but
the way, I see a lot of guesses coming in. Yes, let's play our Tesla closing
yes.
price game with Emmett too here. Throw in your Tesla closing price guess for today. Price is right rules again, meaning be at or under. If you're over, you're disqualified from winning the virtual Juju prize. Um,
Okay.
by the way, today I bought some, or I got some blood oranges today because it's been a ugly couple months here. So maybe this will turn the tide for us.
The blood
Um,
oranges, yeah.
but Emmett, what's your guess for Tesla closing price today?
Oh man, I mean, this is like guessing June 2023 is a lot more. Makes a lot more sense to me. It's a lot easier. I always think of like just the short term price. Eh, uh, it's like quantum physics or quantum entanglement. I've said before. It's like the day to day movement or the minute to minute or hour to hour. This is like the most quantum entanglement you can get is like guessing in 10 minutes what the price is going to be.
Yep,
So I'm gonna guess
that's fun.
864. 864.
Okay, I like it. I'm gonna
Yeah.
say 860 on the dot. That's what
Okay.
I'll say. Yeah, it's
860. Okay.
it's pretty
Oh, we just
stochastic.
went up that. We just went above 860. Oh, you
Oh,
already.
well, that's good. That's good. Then that means it'll come back down to hit my price. What's funny is like you're totally right with like especially today or not today, but like in today's day in the last couple of months with everything going on, it's just so macro driven.
Yeah.
There is very little like even if like what I'm noticing now with headlines that come out for Tesla, it doesn't really affect the stock at the moment. Like with headlines with Berlin or water or the grand opening or people getting delivery notices, it just seems like all Tesla wants to do is follow the macro markets. And I'm not sure if that's just because the lack of money out there individual to Tesla or something else, but it just seems like no one could really care about individual stocks at the moment. Everyone's just focused on the general market, which I guess makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I see someone asked the question, what do I think it'll be June 2023? I see a lot of guesses between 859 to 862. But for June 2023, I think the price could very well be, $800 to $1,000 per share still if full self-driving doesn't come to fruition at all from where it is now. I'm not saying, I don't think it's a guarantee that just because the business is doing super well that the stock is going to move in line with the business. The stock, you have to remember, is up like 20x from where it was a couple of years ago, like 2.5 years, it's up ridiculous. It's like, but I do think the full self-driving, software revenue, if they start generating, that adds a whole new element that the stock could get to 1,500, 2,000, possibly above 2,000 come June 2023 if there's a few quarters of incredible software revenue coming in at that
Hmm.
by that time. So even if there's no full self-driving software revenue that's substantial before then, if it hasn't really come to fruition yet,
Hmm.
then it could be anywhere from 800 to 1,500 is my guess. Maybe even 700 possibly, but I don't think it would be that low. I mean, I think the fundamentals are strong enough and it's growing fast enough where the stock should still be at least $1 trillion market cap, I would think. But
Hmm.
$1 trillion market cap, that's one of the biggest companies in the world. And June 2023, it'll be generating tons of revenue. But I mean, $1 trillion market cap company is still huge too. You have to think about that too. I'm
What's
still going to
your
be a holder, right? It'll go up eventually, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's close to $1 trillion market cap still.
hmm,
What do you think, Yasha?
what's Oh, I was just gonna say, I guess it depends on earnings. Do you have an earnings estimate for this fiscal year, and then let's say next year, or are you just kind of waiting to see how Berlin and Austin shape up before getting more definitive number there?
I mean, Matt has a more detailed model with his earnings that we've looked at a few times together and agreed on some ranges. I forget exactly what they were. But my back of the napkin kind of eyeballing of earnings is probably closer to, uh, you know, I don't know. I think it's based on how many cars. I think they'll deliver, between 1.5 million and 2 million cars this year. And so next year, 2023, they'll be projected to, they'll deliver, 3 million cars, maybe more, but so you have to kind of just, do napkin math off of that, I guess. And then
Yeah.
grab the gross margins, kind of keep the gross margins where they are now for that, I would say. I mean, there'll be some gross margin sacrifice as they ramp up the Berlin and Austin as they're ramping. But I would think that over the long term, it'll be about where it is now. I don't know.
Hmm.
You have any
Interesting.
thoughts on the margins or earnings?
Yeah. Yeah, like I think well, let's say 1.5, let me just pull up my spreadsheet here. If there's 1.5 million cars delivered, let's say this fiscal year, that might be pushing it, but let's say there is. Then at 20% operating margin, which I think they were at 18x Elon's payroll tax cut
Hmm.
last quarter. That's about $16.5 billion in bottom or in EBITDA, let's say close to.
Hmm.
Um, so earnings per share on that is about what is that, 15 bucks then? So I mean, 15 bucks EPS, 15 bucks EPS, I guess then it just depends on what multiple does the market want to give on a stock that's growing 87% year over year, revenue top line, earnings way obviously higher than that because they just came from no earnings. I guess it'll depend, but it'll be hard for big money to find a kind of a growth story that Tesla will have, especially in the face of kind of the markets that we're sitting in.
Yeah.
Um, but you know what, I think you're right with having at least kind of if you want to call it more tame expectations. I remember when we were streaming when Tesla was hitting all time highs with Dave on that day,
Yeah.
and we're at 1,243 bucks, and you were getting some backlash from the chat of, you were saying, well, look, there's probably a good chance that we revisit below 1,000, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of people in the chat saying that's never going to happen. Of course, the market has a way to humble all of us, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think longer term is probably good, but by June 2023, I would think, well, of course, Berlin and Austin won't be fully ramped by then. Um, but it's got to be close to, I'm not sure what percentage, but it's got to be close to that. No.
Yeah, yeah, you'd think so. By the way, 57 on the stock. It looks like the whole macro market, Nasdaq. I'm looking at that kind of took a little bit of a minor 0.5% drop in the last few minutes, which brought Tesla down with it a little bit. So I guess we'll see what happens in the last
Yep,
three
you're right.
minutes here.
Look at the
Yeah.
Nasdaq. Yeah, there might be some shorts coming in prior to the CPI print tomorrow.
Yeah, profit
Um,
taking a little, like a few people just, yeah, who knows? I mean, the market's so big, it's hard to know why it's moving
what
one
it
way or
is.
another
Yeah.
any given minute. But yeah, there's certainly a drop here a little bit at the end of the day, and that, not much, but 0.5% to 1%, it looks like.
I mean, at least economically speaking, it seems like by next end of next week, we might have kind of the worst of the FOMC Fed stuff behind us. I think
Mm,
once the Fed starts raising rates, it's not this big scary monster anymore. It's just kind of is what it is, and people have been pricing it
I
in,
agree.
if
Yeah,
not more later.
I
Um,
agree with that for sure. Yeah, people just want to get to these data points and get them over with and move past. I
yeah,
mean, we could be, and there's recession fears, and we could be in a recession right now. Like recession is defined by like in the U.S. 2 consecutive quarters of decline in GDP, and so this quarter we're in right now could be a decline in GDP. We'll find out soon, and if that's the case, next quarter could happen too. So we
mhm,
could be in the midst of a recession right now, and maybe the stock drop that's already happened is because will be attributed to the recession and when the history books are written and say, remember that drop in 2022 when the recession was, and the
mm,
low was in March and then it rebounded. Who knows?
yeah,
We'll see. So I think people think like, oh, recession,
mm.
it's not official yet, but once it's official, the stock market has already made its move. I think I don't think the stock markets. Then the stock markets, then like, oh no, recession was last quarter and this quarter. Now we have to drop. I don't know.
Hmm.
I just feel like
Yep.
recession fears get overblown for that reason. Yeah. The
Mm.
talk of recession.
As we sit here, the Atlanta Fed GDP estimate for this quarter is a little bit over 0% growth
Mm.
on GDP. So it
But it's
has been
within the
negative,
margin of error of being negative, obviously, right?
of
So if they
course. Yeah.
revise it down, we'll
Yeah.
see. I mean, with the recent gasoline price increase, it could change this quarter this quarter substantially to be negative, I think. Yeah.
It's, I mean, grand scheme of things, like context, like what is really happening here? We've printed more money than ever in history. M2 is at record levels. People are back at the office, back at work, economy's open, and now we're going to have a recession. Like what has really been, and wages are still flat on the lower end of the scale. It's just hard to fathom how how the last 2 or 3 years have been macroeconomically speaking. It just seems like inequality has just increased even more in the economy, especially like now what there's a recession. Just seems it seems like there's no way out other than having a cleansing recession
Yeah.
that kind of clears out. I mean, recessions are bad for everyone, of course, but they also have the reasons why they actually act in cycles. And it
Yeah.
clears out money in bad stocks, bad companies, bad equities, bad opportunities. It flushes out employment to
Yeah.
redistribute it in areas. So no one wants to see a recession. I guess we'll see what happens here. But Atlanta
Yeah.
Fed GDP numbers don't look amazing at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. We got about 20 seconds. I see 8:58. Oh, it looks like we're both going to be too high. Price is Right rules. We both would lose.
Oh no, I
Oh,
think we're gonna hit 860 on the dot here. 858 50 it is at the moment.
oh, whoa, whoa. Let's see.
Yeah, you
8:59.
see? There we go. It
Uh-oh.
knows. It
Oh,
knows. We got three
man, there's
seconds
so many
here. Let's see.
prints. Wow, look how fast it's printing. How fast. Oh,
There we go. So
oh,
is that right? 858.90
okay.
closing price on Tesla. Not bad. I mean,
Yeah,
five
not bad.
four 4% update. Of course, the Qs were up 3.6%. So, a beta of 2, you'd expect Tesla to be up a little bit more, but Tesla's been acting kind of in line with the NASDAQ as of late.
Hmm.
So that's the official quote. Let me just refresh my 858.84. So
Wow.
um,
That's the closing print, huh?
that's the closing print, and
Okay.
I'm just gonna find out who won this thing here before we sign off. Um, I think it's Mystic who won 858.63 is what he guessed.
Whoa, 1 penny away.
Well, about 20 cents away. 20
Oh,
cents
20
away.
cents. 84. Sorry, not
Yes.
64. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
84.
crazy. Okay.
Yeah, not bad. Well, there
That's
you go,
pretty close.
Mystic.
Well, you got so many guesses, how do you collect the guesses so quickly and figure it out? Did you
Oh, yeah, it's I've got my chat pulled up, and that's why I only make everyone guess 15 minutes before, because otherwise I'd lose everyone in the chat. But I have to press Control F and just go through and figure it out. One of these days, I'm going to set up something where people can actually enter it in, and I can like actually have a better way to do it. But yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Hey,
Cool.
thanks, Emmett, for tuning on. Awesome time whenever you're on. Great insights today, and
Sure.
awesome Green Day. So thanks
Yeah,
for
good
joining.
green day. Yeah, I'm glad we scheduled it on a day that turned to be a good green day and we weren't so depressed and down like a lot of most recent days have been. So,
Yeah. And
yeah.
for the record, I mean, what's two Green Days in a row? I mean, it feels like we haven't seen that in a while.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope we get like 3 or 4 or 5 days in a row. That'd be a nice string to pull together. We'll see. Maybe this is the beginning of that. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
tomorrow is another day, and let's hope the war in Ukraine is not going to escalate much further, and we'll see. So yeah,
absolutely.
great chatting with you, Yashu, and yeah, I'll be happy to come on there again at some
Let's do
point
it.
soon. Yeah.
Let's do it. And hopefully maybe we get to see each other in Austin if stars
Yeah,
align.
that'd be great. Yeah,
Right
that'd
on.
be great.
Awesome. Thanks, Emmett.
All
Thanks
right.
for joining.
All right. Yep.
Take care.
Take care.